big week in footy as per normal. When things go wrong at a football club and they walk one out, we all turn our attention to who's coming in. And the conversation has been only with one man, Ross Lyon. Have you found that this week? Have you seen that?
Yeah, I've seen a bit of feedback of how quickly it sort of won the St Kilda fans over, considering he did walk out. I don't know, it was a long time ago that he walked out. Some haven't been able to forgive that, some have. I'm not too fussed on that. I just want St Kilda to get the right person. And the characteristics that they described on the back of sacking Brett Ratton this time last week had Ross written all over it. Now, they denied having spoken to him before, but clearly they had spoken to Ross's people, or a version of that, because it's moved pretty quickly to the point where he may be announced today. Now, he spoke to Tony Jones on Channel 9 yesterday. His heart's been opened up.
We're very close, and giving both parties time to do the ERP, their due diligence, and hopefully get across the line in a not too distant future. Things are pointing that way. Like, I'm keen. Like, my heart's been opened up to St Kilda through Andrew and Simon and their board.
So it's happening. I found this next piece of audio from Ross. This Saints fans would like hearing this. Is what he said about the culture of St Kilda at the moment.
I don't like the narrative around St Kilda. Sort of, maybe it's deserved, but I think sometimes it's a bit disrespectful. So hopefully we can get to a point where I'm able to roll up the sleeves and get in and help change that. Hopefully.
It's been disrespectful. Chat around St Kilda, I don't think it's been disrespectful. I just think it's been honest.
Well, they've played. He's been out of there for 11 years, and they've played finals once in that period, 1 year. And so I think you'd have to say over the past decade it's been accurate. But when he was there, they were very successful. 7 to 11, he pretty much played finals every year that he had them rolling. 66% win-loss record at the Saints. He's a guy you can just bank as being a disciplinarian. He's going to have a rigid game plan. It's going to be defence first. We know that wins games. It's not as pretty as other models. My question would be: has the game forced Ross Lyon to coach a more proactive, aggressive, attacking brand of football? Given what we've seen, the shift with Geelong and Chris Scott, who was always in that Ross Lyon mould, really protect first rather than score. So there'll be. I hope that Ross has evolved as a coach. I'm sure that he has. He's been, studying the game close as anyone over the last, 2 or 3 years since he's been on the sidelines. So I think it's a great appointment. It'll be ratified, I think, today. It'll be as early as today. We'll actually put this to bed. But I think it's a great appointment, don't you?
Yeah. No. Well, he's the best available option outside of the coaches that aren't coaching now. Like, if you can't go and poach another coach, we spoke about it last week. It was always going to be Ross Lyon from the moment they made the call. There was no surprises anywhere, and it's played out exactly the way that we thought. Who does he surround himself with? Notoriously very demanding of his assistant coaches. We know the team around the senior coach is just as important, and that's what Geelong have built so well, and that's what the best programs have. What does he need around him, Kingy? I mean, he seems to have loosened up a bit. We see his personality in the media, and he doesn't, and those that he has coached said there's a lighter side to him. But what roles are really important to be around him? Like, he's a good strategist, and he sees the game well. And he will make those moves game day. I think that's not an issue for him. But week to week and dealing with the players and exactly what St Kilda need, I'm not exactly sure what his first appointment would be.
Well, the criticism's been around the development of the younger players historically with Ross. So I think that's somewhere at the top of the priority list. I think would be a great development program, whether that's one coach or a group of coaches or a setup as such. But I think he's across most things. He's a great relationship builder. The ex-St Kilda players or the former St Kilda players, they love him. They love the man, not just the coach, not just the football program, or what he tried to bring them. They just fell short of the ultimate success, but gee, they had a 3 or 4 year window where they were right at the pointy end and could have easily won one, if not more, premierships during that time. So his credentials speak for themselves, but the relationship side of it, I think he's already got covered. He's going to be hard on this list because they're an underperforming list, and they're a bit in no man's land with where they sit without a dominant match winner. And they lack that. They lack that guy that just rips the heart out of the opposition in a 10, 15-minute window. That's his biggest challenge, isn't it?
So I think Lethlean sees the list better than the way that we perceive it to be, or most footy people would perceive it to be, and I see it similar to you, that there are in that, there's 6 to 10. So then Ross comes in. They think the list is better, and I'm just reading between the lines there that they can move up pretty quickly. What is a pass mark? I mean, what happens if they finish 9th? Because that's where we would all have them. Somewhere between, it'd be a stretch to think they would finish 6th. I would have there somewhere between 7 and 14 next year. So what happens if you make this drastic call? Ross comes in and you finish 9th next year, which is a very real possibility. Is that going to be a massive failure for them? They want instant gratification.
Do you think it'll be a failure, do you?
Well, I think they want instant. I think they're making this move because they said, we don't want to be 6 to 10. And we go and get Ross Lyon, and we think he has got the characteristics to drive this list, who we rate, and they've said that. But I see them as in that footy quicksand again next year. I mean, then what do they do?
So what are the? Yeah, so this discussion goes around in circles. I think that they've gone and got Ross Lyon because
you think it's a long-term move.
Well, I do, yeah, because I don't think you. I think there's a realisation that they're not in the top 4 contention bracket, and if you're not there, well, then it's just a matter of how many years away from getting back to there you are. So that's the vision for me. So I don't think anyone's got them in that top 4 bracket. You clearly wouldn't have them there.
Well, I don't, but I think they have.
No, they had themselves there. I don't think right today they have them. Okay. They had themselves there when they were delusional 18 months ago and put these expectations on Brett Ratton that he just couldn't fulfil. So I think that they know where they're at today more than they ever have, or particularly over the last 3 to 4 years, and they know they lack talent. They lack absolute prime talent. Now, in the meantime, they haven't been able to get the best out of the talent they've had there. So their B graders have become C graders, and they've become a dysfunctional unit. They've defeated themselves as much as they've defeated the opposition in the last 12 months to 18 months.
So in terms of a finishing next year, you're not as worried about where they finish next year. You're worried about where they finish in 3 and 4 years' time. But I don't think they've made this move to worry about where they finish in 3 or 4 years' time. I think they want instant improvement, and I think they want finals next year.
Well, if they want instant, if they're thinking this is a list that can take them to the promised land, then they will stay on this merry-go-round of sacking people and ruining coaching careers. I think Ross would have been honest with them. Certainly the feedback over the last, 2-3 weeks since the season finished is everything that we are still saying now. I mean, there could be no grey area with this list. So I think he's 2 years away from 2 seasons away from finals and then launching from there.
All right. Hawthorn was savage throughout the trade period. Kingy, I know you wanted to bring this up on the agenda this morning.
Yeah, it's taken a few days to sort of digest what's going on, and I know Sam's come out and made some comments about not wanting to limp into the finals to be a premiership winning coach, a premiership contender, and to get this list and this great club back to where it needs to be. But I fear that Sam Mitchell, another rebuild coach, has committed professional suicide in terms of what they've done with the experience purge of players from their list over the last couple of weeks. We know that Gunston's been traded and Mitchell and Jago O'Meara. They've lost McAvoy. They've lost a couple of other senior players just through retirements, through sheer age, obviously. But when you look at what that leaves them with, I think there's only 3 players on their list that are 27, 28 years of age plus. They're going to be drastically inexperienced week on week. And I always worry about the rebuild coaches. And you look at the list additions they're going to have at the draft. I think they got pick 6 and then 24. It's not like they've gathered 3 first-round picks. It's not like next year they'll have the ability to then do the same, because the guys that'll be up as tradable commodities will still be the same. It'll still be guys like Wingard and Sicily and players they don't really want to move on. So I'm concerned that we've seen rebuild coaches fail. I talked about David Noble and the situation he was in. Initially at the Kangaroos going to be tough, but there's 100 names I could mention. Lepich, McCartney, Bolton, Teague, Scotty Waters, Alan Richardson. You can go through a heap of rebuild type coaches that have had more experienced lists than what Sam's going to have for the next 2 to 3 years.
I didn't get it either, and I was confused by it. For your point there is it wasn't as if they were compensated adequately for losing those players. So the upside downside of keeping them on the list versus getting a second round pick in, like who cares about a second round pick for O'Meara? That this club needs top 3 picks and 3 years in a row of top 3 picks, which they don't have, and that dates back to Alistair Clarkson and he didn't have faith in the draft. Sam Mitchell has an unwavering confidence about him that I love, though. And when we get to speak to him fortnightly, and look, he's won me over, they need to have a 10-year plan with Sam Mitchell. Because I don't think you'd be making these calls if you were, just on a 3-year contract. They need to back him in. Clearly, they made a big call to get him and move on Alistair Clarkson and put him in the chair. He doesn't make calls like this unless he's very confident in his ability to coach and the support that he's got from the board and the footy club. So I just hope they give him that time because...
How much time? I mean, this is not necessarily... I'm not trying to be negative on Sam or on Hawthorn's plight because I follow the Kangaroos. I've never seen as much turmoil.
No, it's factual.
Club.
The situation. I remember when you did the segment on Fox Footy about Noble during the year and you went through those coaches, and I asked you to sort of go through it again this morning because our audience may not be aware of it. They just don't. These rebuilding coaches historically don't survive.
They
don't. Others would say, well, Hardwick started 0-9. I think
I'll give you the facts. I'll give you the facts. So Mark Neal was 1-10 on the back of 4-18, gone. Ben Rutten, 6-15, gone. In his second year, second year is the one that gets you. Brendan McCartney went 5 wins, 8 wins, 7 wins, gone. Lepich, 7 wins, 4 wins, 3 wins, gone. Teague, 6, 7, 8, gone. Brendan Bolton, 6, 7, 2, and then was 1-10, gone. Guy McKenna, different situation. Scotty Waters, 12 wins, and then 5 and 17, gone. So as soon as they see the fall or the slide and can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, that's when the challenge comes. And I just fear that he's challenged the system, and we've seen that this is not the answer from the Kangaroos situation.
Yeah, cut too deep. So he did release that letter to the members, Sam Mitchell. He said, this year we average fielding more players aged 23 and under per game than any other club. I don't get the point of clubs using that as a good thing because young teams don't win. So I don't quite get that as a positive for them. But he said we must stick to the plan. We've spent a lot of time building the strategy. He says this is about building our next phase of talent. This was the quote that struck everyone. I have no interest, and I know the players feel the same, to just sneak into finals. They want to win it, and every coach would be the same. But Hawthorn fans,
when is that? When is finals seriously on the agenda when you're cutting back so far and losing all experience? And I know that the text machine will light up and say you're being too negative. I just can't believe that he's done this at the end of his first year of coaching.
And I spoke about James Sicily. He just signed a 5-year deal. The guy's 27, I think, off the top of my head. Yep. He has got no hope. He can be the next captain of the club. He got no hope to win a premiership, let alone perhaps even play in a final in his time at Hawthorn. So how does that... I mean, I've heard Nick Revolt speak about that. When you are a senior player and you realise your prospects are very thin of not competing where you want to compete, how does that infiltrate the group? Can I ask you about Adelaide then? Because we chatted about Matthew Nicks, and at one point they were tracking pretty poorly throughout the year, and they were sort of able to turn the tables a little bit towards the back end of the year. They won 7 or 8 this year. It's year 4 of the rebuild for Matthew Nicks at Adelaide. He got the contract extension, the extra 2 years after the initial 3 that he needed. I mean, there's questions there, isn't there, about Adelaide and what the expectations are now that you go into year 4 of a rebuild. It goes quickly.
Yeah, it does. Look, you know my thoughts. I still don't think they've got anywhere near the talent that's required to step up the tree. And this is not a problem of the last 2 drafts. And people say, but we got Jordan Dawson in, and we got Rochelli's going to be a star, and Saligo's going to be a star, and now we got Rankin. Yeah. I get all that, but I think the problem from the last drafts of 4 or 5 years ago are going to hurt for a little while. I just don't think he's got the talent. I mean, they sacked Brett Ratton because of the list. And maybe he's not the absolute best coach out there, and Ross Lyon takes his place. You go through a spiral of sacking coaches with poor lists.
Yeah. So I wonder what the actual right way to go about it is, because there was one school of thought when you realise your list wasn't capable. All right, you cut back and then you go to the draft and you rebuild from the bottom up. That has flipped now, and we've seen Geelong and what Richmond are now doing. I think that the attitude around is rebuilding the right way to go. Is it the way to go, or is it a cop out that does give you some time but essentially doesn't get the results that you're after? Would love your thoughts. Shane's on the line. You want to speak about Hawthorn and Sam Mitchell. What's your response to Kingy's thoughts this morning, Shane?
Thanks, Kane. Thanks, Kenny. Look, I'm a Bulldog supporter, so not Hawthorn at all, but I like what Hawthorn and what Sam's trying to do. We all know you don't want to come in and be told, you need to keep this player, you need to do that, you need to do this. He's going to come in and he is trying to just create totally his own team. And he obviously has the confidence in the club that have said to him, hey, we'll give you 3 years. You create your own team, you bring in the young kids, you get rid of the old ones, you do what you want to do, you make this about yourself. And when we have a review in 3 years' time, then you can say, do you know what, I did it my way and it didn't work. Rather than getting hellbound, I need to keep this player, I need to keep that. I actually think it's great. He's got the club obviously have confidence in him, and he's doing it the way he wants, and he'll walk away knowing that he built the team on his own.
Good on you, Shane. Thanks for your thoughts. A lot of people lining up to have their say, including Peter. Good morning to you, Pete.
Yeah, good morning, guys. I've got a couple of points. First of all, I love listening to you blokes, so it's nothing against you, but I think Sam deserves a pat in the back for putting his head in the chopping block and having a crack and doing it his way. Yep. It's easy to sit back in the media and never actually put your hand up to say, yeah, I'll be a senior coach, and to sit back and criticise what everyone else does without actually having to go yourself. So I love Sam's being brave. And to bring real change and be a true leader, sometimes you need to be brave. And you look at our list, our backline's pretty good. You look at that backline's pretty good. You can see they're building a good midfield. Got good wings. Our forward line needs a lot of work. Got a couple of good rucks. But I actually, as a Hawthorn supporter, I've been a member for over 25 years. I sat through the 90s and watched us mediocre sides and blokes play 150 games and get life memberships who were tried their guts out, but they weren't that good. At least he's having a dip. And I'm excited to go to the footy again next year. The last couple of years I haven't been. Next year I'm excited to go and see these kids. And yeah, they'll make mistakes. And they'll turn the ball over coming off half-back and do silly things. But you'll see something. And you'll say they're 18, they're 21. At least we're having a crack.
That's great, Pete. I'm with you. We love Sam. We talk to Sam every couple of weeks. And that's why I want him to be a coach for 20 years. I just don't want him to – I don't want this to be a problem for him in 18 months' time. When all the next callers, Cornsey, I want you to ask them. They're all Hawthorn supporters. When's the next year they play finals? Give me the year they play finals, and that as a starting point to your discussion.
John's on the road. John, what year do Hawthorn next play finals?
I don't really care because I don't follow Hawthorn, but I just want to have a crack at you because I'm on the way to the gym and you get my blood pressure going, which is good. Now, you're saying that the rebuild's not the way to go anymore. Now, let's turn the clock back to Port.
No, I'm just asking the question, has the competition's views of the rebuild shifted on the back of
the absolute rebuild?
I don't know what the right method is, John. It's a combination of all things. Draft, free agents, recruits, rookies, all of that. It's a combination of the two, whereas previously when you were no good, you savagely cut and you went down the rebuild model, which was largely focused on the draft. I'm just asking the question. What's your view?
Well, what I'm saying, like Port went down the Watts, Motlop road and it didn't work, and then they went to the draft and got Rosie, Butters, etc. And I reckon it has worked. So yes, you can cut too deep. And
but they also went like Alir comes in, Fantasia comes in, Mackenzie comes
kept
in.
Their experience.
So I think they've tried to do it more of the modern view. You got the elite draft picks, you go to the draft, you take them, but you also try and have a crack at a Horn Francis or a Radigalia. So I just don't think it's one size fits all. I'm not exactly sure what the answer is, but Geelong are doing it better than everyone else. Mark's on the road. G'day to you, Mark.
Yeah, g'day, boys. I'm a happy Geelong supporter, so I'm just trying to look at it from a distance. I mean, obviously, we just keep trying to top up, but we've been up the top for a long time. I think Melbourne's the example because Melbourne was down the bottom, did heavily invest in the draft, and eventually got to a premiership. Takes a while, but I think that's the model that they're following.
Yeah, and spat out a few coaches. That's my point. It took a few coaches to get to this point. And I'm talking specifically about Sam Mitchell surviving the journey. Not many have done it, if any.
Yeah. And the facts are undeniable. Martin's on the line. You want to speak about the Hawks, Martin? When will Hawthorn next play finals?
41. Listen, I hope they keep Sam Mitchell there forever. It's all about it's Buckley Mark too, and for the benefit of all the other clubs, Mitchell will be good for Hawthorn. He's got the gift of the gab, and he's off to a great start. So let's try and keep Sam Mitchell there at Hawthorn forever. All right.
Don't know if be forever.
I don't think Martin. You're not a Hawthorn supporter, Martin, are you? Let's just declare that.
The Mighty D's. I hope you got my Brownlow sheets.
Yes. Good on you, Martin.
Good on you, Martin.
Thank you,
Let's
pal.
go to Simon. Sam Mitchell's comments about not limping in the final, Simon.
Yeah, good day, Kane. They before the grand final, the night before, they did him and Luke Hodge did a function, and he was saying exactly what's coming out in the media now, that he's not interested in making the finals just to get kicked out. But look, I'm an Essendon supporter, and I remember what happened in '93. We were 100-1 to win, and your dad was coaching against a team that was 7 goals up, but you were 7 goals up at half time, and Essendon, the Baby Bombers, just come and won. So miracles happen in footy.
Jason, my point is that the suit of picks or the suite of picks that's coming in, it doesn't give him the best chance either. 6, 24, 41. You're back to deep picks pretty quick. You haven't got 4 or 5 picks inside of 20 or 25. So that's what worries me.
What pick was James Hurd? What pick was James Hurd?
You're talking about an era where the draft was totally different to what it is now. We're lucky to have 50 picks.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
We won't have 50 picks in this year's draft. So it's now more professional off field than it was back in those days. So I just think the balancing act now for Sam is going to be so tough. How visionary can you be when you're a first year coach?
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating watch. Jason is in Preston. Your thoughts on the Hawks, Jace?
Yeah, good morning, boys. Listen, the question I'll put to you is, how many games did the Hawks win this year because of Mitchell and O'Meara? Career suicide was hanging on to those two guys.
Well, I think Mitchell come 5th in your best and fairest, and O'Meara come 7th. So they can't have been too bad.
Do you think a Brownlow medalist should come 5th?
Well, they can't have been too bad if they're top 5 in your best and fairest.
Yeah, particularly when he was playing a role that wasn't necessarily suited to him. Like his midfield minutes had evaporated essentially.
Gunston? Had Gunston in there?
Yeah, and who kicks your goals after Gunston? So it's more so about the halo effect of what it does to the young players in and around that as well. Like just to chuck all young players in there, and I've done it. I've been involved in a team that won 3 games for the year, and it's a disaster when it's just all young. There needs to be the mix of that. It's not about what they provide. It's about how they help the young players in and around them. Anyway, Sam Mitchell, we just hope he gets the time that he will require and that he deserves.
And it's not necessarily just Sam, is it? Because you and I we're having a philosophical discussion, really. We're saying the rebuild coach doesn't survive if he hangs on to these experienced players, and it takes 4 to 5 years or longer. What hope have you got when you purge all the experience?
Yeah,